conventionalized notion that there were 70 nations on the earth, and so that would correspond to the 70 children of God. And we have other ancient Semitic literature that is more mythological, that is not from Israel and Judah, that talks about the 70 sons of El and sons of Asherah. And so this corresponds with the pantheon of other nations around ancient Israel and Judah. And so the idea is basically that God is standing among the divine council and telling them, let us make the humanity, mankind, in our image and in our likeness. Now, it's God, it's the singular God that actually goes down and then makes humanity. And there's only one God involved in the actual process. But there seems to be this vestigial reference to the divine council. And this divine council pops up in a number of other places. It's even explicitly mentioned in Psalm 82, where the psalm starts by saying, Elohim, God, takes his stand in the midst of the gods, or in the divine council, the Adat El, and judges among the gods. And so that's another reference to the same idea of the pantheon being made up of each of these different nations of the earth that sit on this governing body. And in Psalm 82, you gotta tell me soon. They've done wrong. God condemns them to mortality. And then the psalmist in the last verse calls on Elohim, which is scholars unilaterally reference to Adam and Israel. Calls on Adonai to inherit all nations. Basically, the gods of the nations have all been proposed from their seats in the divine council. You're going to take over their positions. You're going to take over directly as all the nations of the earth. It's the universalization of Adonai's sovereignty and power and authority that allows Adonai to be worshipped in any nation of the earth. So there's a worldview, an ancient worldview that is very different from how we have traditionally interpreted the Bible, that saw the entire world as replete with gods, and the other nations had their own gods over them, and the God of Israel was just the God of that one nation and that one people in the earliest periods prior to their rhetorical elevation over all the other gods of the earth, and ultimately their dispatching of the other gods of the earth to take over the rule of the nation. So it's quite soap opera.
Yeah, it's like a big God drama. And like, of course, God is going to be the best God. So as time goes on, I'm going to put my God above all these other gods. So is the scholarly consensus that ancient Israel, like other nations, were polytheistic?
Yes.
And with I know in Genesis you have like the three primary manuscripts, Yahwist, Elohist, and Priest. If I remember correctly, I might be saying that wrong, but Yahwist was written in the 9th and 10th centuries. Is that kind of when, like, this oldest chapter we believe was written, and did that change with those other scripts that make up Genesis?
So there's one theory of Pentateuch composition where there are four sources.
Okay.
The Yahwist, the Elohist, the priestly source, and then Deuteronomy, or D.
Okay.
Now, there are a lot of scholars today, and I'm among this other group of scholars, that thinks that the Elohist and the Yahwist are not identifiable as discrete, independent documentary sources. And so a lot of scholars will only talk about the priestly source, Deuteronomy, and non-P.
Okay.
Which is the way to refer to everything else.
Everything else. And priestly was written in 5th century?
6th, 5th century BCE. D was probably started toward the end of the 7th century, but continued to accrete layers into the 6th and down into the 5th centuries BCE. And then there would be pre-P and post-P fragments, that correspond to what scholars identify as J and E. And some of those would be very old, go back to perhaps the late 9th century BCE. I don't think we can go back to the 10th century unless we're talking just about some poetic fragments, like maybe the Song of the Sea in Exodus 15, or the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy 32 seems to have been borrowed from earlier literature. But you don't really have historical narrative prose in Hebrew until the late 9th century at the earliest. So if you've got historical narrative prose as your documentary source, I don't think we can say it's any earlier than the very end of the 9th century BCE. I would normally say 8th century is probably where a lot of this is first being committed to text.
Okay.
A lot of it is probably based on oral tradition and narratives and poetry being passed down from early periods. But once it's committed to text, I think probably the majority of the earliest stuff is 8th century.
And how do you think that, like, this understanding of Genesis affects, you know, one, you have like biblical literalism that says creation literally happened in exactly this way, and you also have the Adam and Eve story that has been used to really demonize and subjugate women. This whole idea of, well, she sinned first, the snake deceived her. So when you're looking at it from the scope of ancient history, how does that change how you interpret the text and how you see these current event issues taken from this text?
Well, one of the biggest things is a historical critical approach that is trying to situate these texts within their ancient context and understand them historically. Does away with a presupposition that I refer to as the presupposition of univocality. And this is the idea that it's all speaking from one single unified and consistent perspective, with one single unified and consistent voice. So this is the idea that the Bible never contradicts itself. That's out the window in a historical critical approach. And one of the things that allows you to see is the ways that these texts are in conflict with each other and are challenging each other. Because the Adam and Eve story, according to the majority of historical critical...
Okay, I got my own stream. Don't worry about it. This is true. Oh man. Ooh, ouch. Reasonably good. Dude, I gotta stop. I'll be waiting for your. I gotta put it. Time's up. Oh, time's up. Let's see. Here, all right. All right, let's see what we get here. How about we do it like this? And we do it like this, and we do it like this, and we do this, and we diddly this. Boo, this one. No, not spit up. Boo, 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 boo. Come on now, zoner. It's not spit up. It's not spit up. Oh, I found it. Oh! Look at all those extra ones now. Alright, it's just one. Fuck! Like, no, man. Why only diff? Huh? What?